Which place is truly chosen by God, Israel or Palestine? There is much debate suggesting that Palestine is not a nation, but merely a coastal region near the Mediterranean Sea. But what if I told you that the conflict between Israel and Palestine is not just a battle over land, but also a mysterious story foretold in the Bible? So, what is the truth? And how does the Bible reference Palestine? In this video, we will explore the facts and unravel the controversies surrounding this topic. Stick with me until the end, and I believe you'll gain new perspectives and find your own answers. Let's begin this journey of discovery together. The conflict between Palestine and Israel is perhaps one of the most enduring tragedies of modern times. Many wonder what has turned this small region in the Middle East into the epicenter of dispute and suffering. Could it be more than a territorial issue, an intense clash of faiths, traditions, and divine mysteries that defy explanation? From the earliest pages of the Bible to tearful peace negotiations, every chapter in Palestine's history carries layers of meaning far beyond any simple political solution. Palestine is not merely a piece of land, but the cradle of three major religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. This makes the struggle more than a geographical matter. It is a spiritual and historical battle. This region is home to sacred landmarks like the Old City of Jerusalem, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the Western Wall, mystical symbols where millions of pilgrims gather each year, seeking connection with something greater than themselves. According to historical records, the city has existed for at least 5,000 years, enduring the reigns of ancient Canaanites, Islamic caliphates, and the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Statistics reveal that since Israel's founding, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have been displaced, leading to waves of mass migration and prolonged exile for the native population. This is not just a 20th century story, but the result of thousands of years of intertwined history, where each generation confronts the same question: who truly owns this land? For believers in prophecy, many argue that this conflict was foretold in the Bible, seen as an integral part of God's plan to test humanity. Palestine is also the homeland of Jesus, the Savior in Christianity, born in Bethlehem, a city located in the present-day Palestinian territories. His brief yet transformative life left an indelible mark on this land, making it a sacred pilgrimage site for millions of Christians. Perhaps it is this confluence of religious and spiritual significance that has rendered Palestine extraordinary, a land impossible to ignore, even for those without direct ties to it. The blend of ancient prophecies and modern geopolitical struggles has made Palestine a symbol of humanity's enduring battle between peace and war, between faith and power. Beneath the statistics and events, every inch of Palestine's soil holds stories of loyalty, faith, and suffering, making it one of the most challenging flashpoints in the world. The question remains: can this conflict ever be resolved? Or will it persist as part of the sacred history that humanity must continue to confront? Palestine, since ancient times, has been the site of spiritual battles waged for thousands of years, beginning with the era of the Canaanites. According to ancient records, this land was known as Canaan, a promised land that God entrusted to Abraham and his descendants, who would later form the nation of Israel. However, the Canaanites, a collection of indigenous peoples that included the Philistines, were renowned adversaries of Israel. They rejected the claim to this land, sparking territorial and religious conflicts that endure in memory. In the scriptures, the Canaanites are portrayed as worshippers of foreign deities, making them a symbol of opposition to God's will. The scriptures depict the Israel-Palestine conflict not merely as a struggle over territory, but as a profound spiritual confrontation. For the Jewish people, This land represented God's promise, a divine inheritance passed down from their ancestors. For the Philistines and other indigenous groups, however, this was their homeland, a place deeply rooted in their own traditions and faiths. The conflict transcended territorial disputes, becoming emblematic of the spiritual struggle between those devoted to the God of Israel and adherents of other beliefs. Iconic events, such as the battle between David and Goliath, a famed Philistine warrior, symbolize more than military triumph. They stand as testaments to the victory of divine will over pagan forces. During biblical times, Palestine was not yet recognized as a nation as it is today, but was part of the land of Canaan, encompassing ancient cities like Jerusalem, Hebron, and Gaza. These cities feature prominently in Scripture, not merely as backdrops for historical events, but as flashpoints in the enduring spiritual conflict between Israel and the native peoples. Later, the name Palestine was introduced by the Roman Empire as a means of erasing Jewish identity following a series of uprisings. The name was derived from the Philistines, Israel's perpetual foes. Thus, in Scripture, Palestine represents more than a geographic region. It symbolizes a spiritual battleground, a proving ground for faith and loyalty to God. This struggle is not confined to ancient history, but continues as a living myth, woven into the beliefs and consciousness of millions around the world. For many, the story of Palestine remains a testament to enduring faith, a site of divine promise and spiritual contention that echoes across generations and into modern times. Let's delve deeper into the connection between the Philistines and Palestine. This link goes beyond mere naming and carries profound historical and cultural significance that traces back thousands of years. The Philistines were one of the ancient peoples who inhabited the southern coastal region of Canaan, a land that is now called Palestine. According to historical and archaeological studies, the Philistines originated from the Aegean region, likely from Crete or other islands in the Mediterranean. They arrived on the southern coast of Canaan around the 12th century BCE and quickly established a strong civilization centered around 5 major cities: Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath. These city-states were prominent hubs where the Philistines developed a flourishing society with robust culture, economy, and military power. The Philistines and Israel became eternal adversaries in the Scriptures. Why did this conflict arise? The answer lies not merely in territorial disputes, but also in profound religious and cultural differences. The Philistines were not only military opponents, but also symbolized defiance against God's will. According to the Scriptures, the Philistines worshipped pagan gods like Dagon, which starkly contrasted with the Israelites' monotheistic faith in God. This divergence created a spiritual conflict, as the Israelites viewed the Philistines as a force opposing their moral and religious beliefs. This rivalry is vividly portrayed in iconic biblical stories, such as the battle between David and Goliath. Goliath, the giant Philistine warrior, symbolized a challenge to Israel, while David embodied divine will and faith, triumphing over Goliath with nothing more than a sling and a stone, showcasing the power of religious conviction. Later, the name Philistia became the basis for the Romans to name the region Palestine after conquering Israel in the 2nd century CE. This act was not merely a naming exercise, but a deliberate attempt by the Romans to erase Israel's identity. As Philistia represented Israel's long-standing enemy, the name Palestine, derived from Philistia, has persisted through centuries. And though the ancient Philistines have vanished from history, their name remains tied to this contested land. Today, when we hear the name Palestine, it often evokes images of a land fraught with conflict and territorial disputes. Yet few realize that this name is steeped in ancient history and legendary wars. Although the Philistines no longer exist as a distinct people, their legacy endures through the name Palestine, and their story remains an inseparable part of this land's ongoing struggles. The connection between the Philistines and Palestine stands as a historical marker, symbolizing a spiritual and cultural battle that has stretched from antiquity to the present day, adding layers of complexity and mythos to one of history's most enduring conflicts. The land of Canaan, which today encompasses Israel and parts of Palestine, is known as the Promised Land, the place chosen and prepared by God to be given to Abraham's descendants. The promise of this land to Abraham and his lineage, as recorded in the Old Testament, represents one of the most sacred and significant covenants between God and the people of Israel. In Genesis 12 verses 1-3, God instructed Abraham to leave his homeland and family to journey to a land he would show him. There, God declared, "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and every place where your foot treads will be yours forever." This was not merely a promise of a physical territory, but an eternal inheritance symbolizing God's blessing and presence. For the people of Israel, the promise of the Promised Land is not solely a geographic concept, but a sacred commitment of protection, blessing, and rightful inheritance. God didn't simply bestow this land upon Abraham, but established an enduring covenant with him, ensuring that the land of Canaan would belong to his descendants forever. In Genesis 15 verse 18, God explicitly stated, "To your descendants, I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates." This emphasized that the land was not merely a possession, but an integral part of God's divine plan, a sacred heritage meant for Abraham's lineage. The significance of the Promised Land in the Bible transcends its physical reality. It was intended as a place where Israel could build a nation governed by God's laws and commandments, serving as a center of faith, devotion, and obedience to Him. In Deuteronomy, God described this land as a place where the eyes of the Lord your God are always upon it, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. For the Israelites, it was a divine calling to live a holy life, free from idolatry, and to adhere to the decrees laid out by God. This elevated the Promised Land from a mere destination to a symbol of the unique covenantal relationship between God and His chosen people. The journey to the Promised Land was also a journey of faith and loyalty. As the Israelites wandered in the desert for 40 years, it was a period of purification, trust-building, and learning to rely entirely on God. The Promised Land became the ultimate goal of redemption and testing, a place where hardships and temptations would cease once they reached the territory long promised to them. It symbolized hope and the fulfillment of God's blessings for those who remained steadfast in their faith. In its theological and prophetic meaning, the Promised Land is often seen as a precursor to heaven, a land where the souls of believers will rest after completing their earthly journey. Many Christians interpret the Israelites' journey to the Promised Land as a spiritual metaphor for the journey every person must undertake to be with God. Thus, the Promised Land is more than a physical place. It is a profound representation of faith, divine promises, and the unbreakable relationship between God and those who believe in Him. The covenant of Canaan was not only a promise to Abraham, but a reminder to all of loyalty and hope on the path toward God. This profound significance fuels the Israelites' intense determination to reclaim the Promised Land as their rightful inheritance. When discussing the Promised Land, we cannot overlook Jerusalem, the ancient city where believers worship God. In the Bible, Jerusalem is not merely a city. It is the centerpiece of divine plans and the focal point of numerous prophecies. When the Bible refers to Jerusalem as a cup of trembling, the phrase signifies more than political or social instability. It symbolizes challenges and conflicts that transcend human control. Specifically, in the prophetic book of Zechariah 12 verse 2, God declares, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem." The imagery of the cup of trembling reflects the turmoil that Jerusalem brings to surrounding nations, a test that no one can easily endure when attempting to seize control of this sacred city. According to the Bible, Jerusalem is prophesied to be the epicenter of final conflicts, a gathering place for all nations, where only divine authority can resolve the tensions. The significance of Jerusalem in the Bible is deepened by its status as the place where God has put his name. It is the city King David chose as the capital of Israel and where King Solomon constructed the first temple, a symbol of God's presence among the Israelites. For thousands of years, Jerusalem has been a holy site for Jews, Christians, and Muslims, but its biblical importance is particularly tied to God's covenant with the people of Israel. The Bible foretells that, at the end of days, Jerusalem will become the focal point of major events, drawing all nations to it. And it is here that God's ultimate plan of salvation will unfold. This makes Jerusalem a symbol of hope and redemption, while also marking it as a hotspot of conflict and trials for humanity. The imagery of the cup of trembling in the Bible carries prophetic implications for the future. It suggests that the conflicts surrounding Jerusalem are not merely historical events, but part of a divine plan that humanity cannot entirely intervene in or resolve. Jerusalem will be the place where all nations eventually gather for a climactic confrontation, and in the process, the city will become a cup of trembling for the entire world. Anyone seeking to control Jerusalem will face insurmountable challenges and conflicts, much like an individual attempting to steady a cup filled to the brim while their hands tremble. In other words, Jerusalem represents a spiritual and moral test for the entire world, a symbol of both instability and hope, where all human efforts are destined to be tested. According to biblical prophecy, only with the arrival of the Messiah will Jerusalem find true peace, and the world will achieve reconciliation through God's divine plan. Thus, Jerusalem in the Bible is far more than an ordinary city. It stands as a testament to humanity's trials, a prophetic image of what the world must confront when faced with God's will. What does the division of the land of Israel truly signify? According to the Bible, dividing the land of Israel is not a trivial matter or a decision left to human authority. For the Jewish people, this land is not merely a place to inhabit. It is the sacred promise of God, a promised land for his chosen people. This promise is not just a covenant of land ownership, but a divine bond, granting Israel an unshakable spiritual claim to the land that cannot be easily shared or relinquished. In the prophetic books, particularly the book of Joel, God warns that he will judge nations that dare to divide or encroach upon Israel's territory. Joel 3 verse 2 records God's words, "I will gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. There I will put them on trial for what they did to my inheritance, my people Israel, because they scattered my people among the nations and divided up my land." This stern warning underscores the sacred nature of Israel's land, emphasizing that it cannot be divided without invoking divine judgment. This prophecy implies that any effort to partition this holy land will lead to unavoidable consequences, as such actions directly violate God's will and divine plan. Beyond the warning about dividing the land, the Bible highlights that Israel is the land chosen by God to bear his name, a place where his presence will always dwell. Deuteronomy 11 verse 12 states, "It is a land the Lord your God cares for. The eyes of the Lord your God are continually on it from the beginning of the year to its end." This underscores that the land belongs to God, and he actively watches over it. Any decisions regarding the land of Israel are not for humanity to make, but are part of God's divine order. When humans attempt to interfere or divide Israel's land, it is not merely an act of trespass, but a direct challenge to God's authority. The Bible also suggests that attempts to divide Israel will trigger a chain of events leading to the final judgment. Many believe that international efforts to establish a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine represent the very division warned about in the Scriptures. For believers, this is seen as a sign of unfolding prophecy, affirming that God's promise to Israel remains steadfast and unchangeable. Thus, through the Scriptures, it becomes clear that the division of the land of Israel is not just a political issue, but a profoundly spiritual one. It is a divine covenant between God and the people of Israel, a test for nations that intervene in this sacred territory. From a faith-based perspective, dividing Israel's land will never bring lasting peace. Only by aligning with God's plan can the world find reconciliation. This land will remain at the center of prophetic events, where God's will is ultimately fulfilled with unshakable authority. The Battle of Armageddon, a prophetic and deeply mysterious event, is one of the most striking images described in the book of Revelation in the Bible. According to Revelation 16 verse 16, the final confrontation between the forces of good and evil will take place at Armageddon, a term derived from the Hebrew Har Megiddo, meaning Mount Megiddo or Valley of Megiddo. This location is believed to be where opposing powers will gather for a decisive battle at the end of human history, during which God will intervene to bring justice and establish his kingdom on earth. The Valley of Megiddo, or Armageddon, thus becomes a symbol of ultimate conflict involving all nations of the world, carrying spiritual significance far beyond a mere physical battle. The Valley of Megiddo is located in northern Israel, within the Jezreel Valley, an area that has borne witness to countless historical battles spanning thousands of years. This strategically significant region, with its vast and commanding views, allowed control over key ancient trade routes. Throughout history, the Valley of Megiddo has been the site of numerous wars, from the conquests of ancient Egypt to the reigns of the Assyrian, Babylonian, and Roman empires. It was here that King Josiah of Judah fell in battle against the Egyptian army led by Pharaoh Necho II during the 7th century BCE. The valley's history of relentless conflict and bloodshed has cemented its place as a symbol of war and strife in the annals of Israel and the broader Middle East. In the Bible, Armageddon is more than just a physical location. It symbolizes the ultimate showdown between good and evil. The book of Revelation describes how, in the end times, nations across the globe will be drawn to Armageddon for a climactic battle. Christ will return to confront the forces of Satan and establish his eternal kingdom. For Christian believers, Armageddon represents a period of purification, when sin and injustice will be eradicated, and God's justice will prevail. Today, the Valley of Megiddo still exists in Israel and draws visitors from around the world. For those intrigued by the Bible and its prophecies, Megiddo is a sacred site where they can feel the weight of history and the fulfillment of biblical promises. Archaeologists have conducted extensive excavations in the area, uncovering remnants of ancient civilizations and evidence of the fierce battles fought there. While the Valley of Megiddo now rests in a serene rural setting, for believers, it remains a place of profound prophetic significance, a reminder of the ultimate spiritual battle foretold in the Bible. In a world marked by constant change and increasingly complex conflicts, many believe that Armageddon will be the setting for the decisive confrontation foretold in Scripture. The Valley of Megiddo, or Armageddon, is thus not merely a geographic location, but a powerful symbol of faith and hope for millions who look forward to a future where justice will reign and true peace will prevail. The Battle of Armageddon serves as a poignant reminder of God's judgment and intervention in human affairs, affirming that through generations, This valley will remain central to the most pivotal event in human history. The Bible contains numerous prophecies and predictions about peace in the Middle East, particularly peace for the nation of Israel. In prophetic books like Isaiah, the Bible not only speaks of the trials that the people of Israel will endure, but also delivers a message of hope about an ultimate era of peace, a time when nations will coexist harmoniously under the reign of God. This vision goes beyond humanly achievable peace through treaties or negotiations. It promises eternal peace, established and sustained by God Himself. The book of Isaiah serves as one of the Bible's primary sources on this theme. Isaiah, a major prophet of Israel, foretold much about the future of Israel and the Middle East. One of his most famous prophecies speaks of a time when nations will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, symbolizing the end of war and violence. Specifically, in Isaiah 2 verse 4, the prophet writes, "He will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore." This prophecy paints a hopeful picture of a future where conflict will be replaced by peace and cooperation, and nations will no longer see the need to engage in warfare. Isaiah's prophetic vision extends beyond temporary peace to depict eternal harmony, where all nations live in justice and tranquility under God's guidance. In Isaiah 19 verses 23 to 25, the prophet describes a future where Israel, Egypt, and Assyria, historically frequent adversaries, will no longer wage war but instead build relationships of peace and prosperity. Isaiah writes, "In that day there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria. The Assyrians will go to Egypt, and the Egyptians went to Assyria. The Egyptians and Assyrians will worship together." This powerful image portrays a world where former enemies unite, collaborate, and worship God together. However, Isaiah also delivers stern warnings to the people of Israel, emphasizing the importance of living in obedience to God's commandments. The prophet cautions that Israel will face trials and judgment if they stray from God's law and will. These challenges, according to Isaiah, are not meant to destroy Israel, but to refine and prepare them for the ultimate era of peace. The Bible makes it clear that these trials are part of a divine purification process, intended to restore Israel to righteousness and make them a shining example for other nations. Isaiah's message of peace transcends Israel, encompassing the entire Middle East and even the world. According to the prophet, true peace can only be achieved when the Messiah, regarded as the Son of God, comes to establish His kingdom on earth. In Isaiah 9 verses 6 to 7, the prophet speaks of the Messiah's arrival. "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on His shoulders. He will reign with justice and righteousness." The Messiah, as foretold by Isaiah, will bring a kingdom of peace and justice, where no injustice or conflict will remain. In Christian belief, the Messiah is Jesus Christ, who will return in the end times to fulfill Isaiah's prophecies. When He returns, He will establish a new kingdom on earth, where all nations will coexist peacefully, and war and conflict will cease. For believers, the Messiah is the hope for eternal peace in Palestine and the Middle East, where all peoples and religions will unite to worship God in harmony. Isaiah's prophecies are not merely promises of a future reality, but also serve as a powerful reminder for the present. They call on humanity to strive for a better world, not solely through treaties and negotiations, but through inner transformation, living by values of justice, love, and forgiveness. Only then, according to Isaiah's vision, can eternal peace become a reality for Palestine and the entire world. The Bible delivers a powerful and unequivocal conclusion. Only God's intervention can bring a lasting solution to the conflict in Palestine and the entire Middle East. According to the Bible, the struggle in Palestine is not merely a land or political dispute, but a profound spiritual battle rooted in complexities beyond human resolution. Revelation, along with the prophecies of Isaiah, Joel, and Zechariah, points to the end times when God will gather the nations at Jerusalem to execute his judgment, bringing justice and peace to Israel and the entire world. In Zechariah 12 verse 3, the Lord declares that Jerusalem will become a heavy stone for all peoples, and those who try to lift it will injure themselves. This signifies that human efforts to resolve the conflict in Palestine will inevitably fail because this struggle can only be determined by God's sovereign power. True peace will only come with the arrival of the Messiah, the Prince of Peace, who will vanquish the forces of evil and establish a kingdom of justice and mercy. For many believers, this is not merely a prophecy, but also a hope for a future where all injustice will be eradicated, and humanity will live in peace and forgiveness. The Bible urges us not to place our faith entirely in human solutions, but to trust in God's plan. For only his divine intervention can bring eternal peace to this sacred land. The insights shared in this video have provided you with a deeper perspective on Palestine. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next video, and may God be with you. Please subscribe to our channel to enjoy more captivating Bible stories from us.